How you tell your story as a school can either make or break your fundraising and developmental efforts. And in this episode, we're going to talk about 7 steps to turning your school story into partnerships. Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King. And the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem of academic excellence. Through inspiring conversations, practical strategies, we empower educators, change makers, and leaders just like yourself, build trust, collaboration, and foster a sense of academic excellence through providing them with the resources and tools they need to thrive as leaders. I want to start with one question. If you could have any 10 things, what would it be? If I was to think about the 10 things that I would want personally, definitely number one would be for my children to be proud of who I am as a man and what I have achieved. Number two is for me to have a wife that I am proud of, that promotes my dream, but I'm also able to promote, encourage, and empower her to be able to live her dreams. Number three is to win a Nobel Peace Prize for global impact. Number four is to build a sustainable community for Black and Brown people where education is free, opportunities are equitable, and entrepreneurship is non-negotiable. Number five is purchase my parents a waterfront property in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where they're from. Number six is to win a Pulitzer Prize for a book that I've published and written. Number seven is to work in the executive cabinet of a sitting president. Number eight is to be able to say that we've, in something that I've built, impacted 10 million children around the world. Number nine is open a children's home called the Maryland Manor. I would want that to be in New Jersey as well. Number 10, this is a material goal, but I want to own the Aston Martin Vanquish from the James Bond movie. When you think about creating anything truly successful, it has to mirror who you are at the core. And the purpose of this conversation isn't just for me to share that I want an Aston Martin when I grow up. It's really to talk to you about aligning your school efforts and your school story and your school's list with your fundraising efforts, with your developmental efforts, and how you tell your story is critical. So when you think about just 5 sentences to ask, just really quickly, what are you selling? That's your objective. Who are you selling to? That's your audience. Why should someone buy from you? That's their incentive. Why should they invest or buy from you now? That's the urgency. And what will they ultimately gain from working with you? That's the new opportunity. And using those 5 questions, we've developed a 7-step model to turning your school story into partnerships. And the 7 steps, the 7 attributes or 7 pillars that we want you to look at are: number 1, character. Number 2 is contribution. Number 3 is capture. Number 4 is collection. Number 5 is connection. Number 6 is convince. And number 7 is close. When we think about the character aspect, this is important. And as educators, as leaders, as change makers, we have to first understand our ELA classes to be able to understand this. Who are you speaking to as a school? And this is important because a lot of times we are creating advertisement, we are marketing these opportunities, and we're marketing certain experiences that our students have had. But if I was to ask you, well, who is this post speaking to before you post it? Do you have a clear answer? Because how you post it, the copy, the graphics, the platform that you use is very important to understand when we're speaking to a specific group of individuals. And as we expand on who we're speaking to, who is the protagonist? And what I look at from this perspective is, what do they desire to hear? What is their antagonist? What is their circumstance? Who are their people, their friends, their relationships? Where are they frequenting? And then what are some clashes that they have with your specific institution or your model or your type of school? Let me break this down. What are the desires of the people that you're speaking to? What do they want? Maybe a quality education. Well, how would they define quality education? Number two is, what is their circumstance? Maybe they're just now moving to your city. Maybe they are leaving another charter or a public or a private school. Maybe they are like, what are the circumstances in which that would lead to them wanting to transition or transfer their student from where they are to your specific institution? Okay. Now, when we think about this from a donor standpoint, where are your donors? Like, who are these people? What are your donors' desires? What are the circumstances that your donors are experiencing? What are the key components and reasons that your donors want to work with you rather than supporting those other causes that they're working with? And then when you think about confidants, who are the relationships that your donors have? Who are their relationships? Who are the people that if they said yes to what you were offering, could say yes to you as well? Their relationships. And where are any clashes? Why wouldn't people give to your educational institution or education as a whole? These are things that I want you to consider. Then we think about step 2, contribution. Your contribution to your audience is how you show up in your content on a day-to-day basis. It has to be clear, it has to be consistent, and it has to be cutting edge. I know schools that we've engaged with that are posting twice a day on a multitude of platforms. They're showcasing experiences online. They're interviewing their students. They're engaging with parents. They're showing up in their communities. How are you contributing to your community? What are the questions that your community has or donors have, and how are you answering them? What are the pain points that your community has, and how are you solving them? What are the problems that your community has, and how are you creating solutions? What this may look like is, how many articles have you released lately? How many videos of capturing and showing social proof of what your students are doing have you released lately? How many static photos of showing the diversity of staff, students, parents, and stakeholders have you released lately? How many testimonials of the whole school experience have you released lately? All of these are important as you are, again, showcasing your contribution. Number 3 is capture. Once people come and they see how you're contributing, you understand who you're speaking to. How are you carving out what we call your blue ocean? How are you capturing the hearts and minds of the people that you want to talk to? Like, what is the new discovery that will exist? I didn't know what charter schools were, especially what classical charter schools were, until I moved to North Carolina. I didn't go to a charter school when I was younger. I didn't even know what a charter school was. I knew public and private, and that's it. I thought public was all the regular people, and private is all the rich people. I didn't know about Montessori. I didn't know about charter. I didn't know that homeschool was as big as it is. I always used to think that homeschool was just for students that were having challenges and that were having challenges socially. So parents kept them home because they had social anxiety. I never knew how great homeschool was, or how great the multitude, or how vast the multitude of educational opportunities existed for students. I never knew. So what are some new discoveries that you may be able to communicate and capture for your audience that they now are able to see, like, oh, wow, like homeschool, investing in homeschool is important and valuable. Oh, this is what charter schools are. This is what classical charter schools are. This is what a Christian private school does. And this is what a STEM school is. How are you capturing and creating new discoveries? On top of that, number 4, and I talk about this frequently on the Contagious Culture podcast, is collection. Once we have identified these people, once we've contributed and we're now creating consistently, and once we've captured their attention, because data shows that it takes 6 times roughly for you to see something, for you to remember it. So it's going to take 6 times minimum for you to post something, for you to share about something, for you to talk about something that your school is doing before someone can truly remember it. So when you think about that, once they remember, how are you collecting information? Whether that is landing pages, whether that is newsletters, whether that is an email list of individuals, whether that is a CRM system, how are you collecting the information of the people that are interested in what you're doing for your specific campaign, for your fundraising efforts, for your developmental efforts? So number one, again, is your character. You got to know your person. Number two is, how are you contributing to what that person needs? Number three, of course, is capture. How are we showcasing a new discovery? And once we've captured them, how are we collecting that information? Now that we have them in our pipeline, now that we have them on an email list or on a CRM system, or we have some way of following up and now building a relationship. Building a relationship equals what? And that's the last C, the next C, connection. This is when we begin to build a relationship with this individual. This is why it's important to understand the person that we're engaging with. So now the content that we produce is specifically tailored to them. The events that we plan are specifically tailored to them. So questions that I want you to consider here are, what relationships do I have? What relationships do I need? What relationships do I desire? What experiences are we creating at our school, online, in our community as a whole? And what is the feeling that we are creating, or the emotion and the experience that we're creating in our communities and outside of our individual school community? How am I developing connection with my audience? How am I speaking their language? Now that I know them, the character phase. Now that I'm contributing consistently, now that I'm capturing, now that I have a way of collecting, it's important for me to build a connection. And once you have a connection, similar in the dating process, now it's time to convince them in stage 6. Blair Warren quoted, "People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, ally their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies." I'm going to say this one more time. Blair Warren quoted, "People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, ally their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies." Now, we're educators, we're good people, so we're not going to help them throw rocks at enemies. But how can you encourage the dream that your donor has? How can you encourage the dream that your parent has before they bring their student to you? How can you justify their failures? How can you connect on their fears? How can you confirm their suspicions? And how can you not help them throw rocks at their enemies? How can we convince them that, hey, this is the best institution out here that you need to have your child enrolled in? This is why this is the best institution, or this is the best institution out there, and why you should be donating your funds and providing your resources and providing either your time, your talent, or your treasure to this institution. And this is the return on your investment. So again, number one is understanding the character. We have to understand who we're speaking to, the desires in which we're speaking to, and then how these desires will allow us to be able to create, number two, contributing content to speak to them. Your contribution to your audience is your content. So how can we create consistent content to be able to speak to these individuals, whether that is through articles, whether that is through media appearances, whether that is interviewing through testimonials, whether this is video to showcase the experiences. Whether this is static shots that show the diversity or sharing results or data, what does this look like? How am I answering questions that haven't been asked yet? How am I overcoming fears that haven't even been communicated yet? How am I showcasing that we're leading and contributing to the original goal and vision and mission? And once we've done that, now it's time for us to capture. It's time for us to help create new discoveries. It's time for us to be able to build that relationship next by the collection. Because in the collection process, when we are building emails, when we have our CRM, when we have our automations, when we have our landing pages, this allows us to understand information about our person, about our character, so that then, step 5, we can build the connection. But this requires us to understand, what relationships do we have? What relationships do we need to be able to get across the finish line? What relationships do we desire? And what experiences are we creating as a school inside our building and outside of our building that can contribute to the next step? Someone being convinced that we are, like Blair Warren says, doing anything for those who encourage, people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, ally their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So how are we convincing people and proving to people that we are the best institution out there? And then that leads us to our last stage, which is the close. What does our closing process look like? Whether that is inviting individuals in, meeting with our team, engaging with our students, taking them through a methodical step-by-step process, and thinking through the customer experience. See, customer acquisition is easy. It's easy to have someone like your photo. It's easy to have someone tour your school. The hard part comes in the closing, and the closing can't happen unless we have connection. If we don't have relationships, the strategy that we have will not be enough. We have to build quality relationships with our people, with the stakeholders that can drive success forward, so that we can be at a place where we can be able to create opportunities and create this ecosystem of academic excellence for our teams, for our school, and for ultimately our students. The 5-sentence clarity exercise that I want you to, this is your homework. Number 1 is understanding the objective and asking yourself this one question: what are we selling as a school? Because just education and buildings is not enough. Number 2, what is our audience and who are we selling to? So that we can speak the language of our people. Number 3, incentive. Why should they buy from you? Why should someone invest thousands of dollars or thousands of hours into your school versus a school that I'm sure is probably 3 to 5 miles from your school? Why your school? And this should be clear and concise. Number 4 is urgency. Why should these individuals invest in you right now? Why this year? Why is it important to do this now? And then number 5 is new opportunity. What will they gain by investing in your school right now? In order for us to grow our schools forward, it requires resources. In order for us to get resources, it requires relationships. In order for us to get relationships, it requires reputation. In order for us to have a reputation, it requires results. In order for us to get results, it requires a standard of excellence. And in order for us to have a standard of excellence, it requires clarity in leadership. If we don't have all of those stages, then it's harder for us to get a yes. But through this conversation, through this episode that we're having, now you understand how to turn these stories into partnership. Now we understand if we don't understand our character, it's hard for us to contribute to that person. And then it's hard for us to be able to capture that person. Then it's hard for us to understand what type of collection materials that we need so that we can build a connection with this individual so that we can ultimately convince them and then get them to a place where we can close them. These stages are important. Complete your 5-sentence exercise. Like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone in your network. Again, my name is Kyle King. Thank you so much for joining us on the Contagious Culture podcast. And ask yourself this week, what kind of culture am I spreading? Culture isn't everywhere. It's in everything and is everywhere. Make yours worth catching. We'll see you next episode.